Bright fluorescence blinded me as they yanked the back of my head, suddenly lighting up my world that had been dark for hours now. I was sat at a long conference table. The agents who had just taken the bag were withdrawing back to the wall behind me. At the other end of the long, heavy wooden table was an older man. "Sorry about the shady spy stuff. Can't have anyone knowing where we operate, you know." The older man chuckled. "Can I get you anything to drink? Coffee? Tea? Water?" My thoughts were racing. Anything about the past day wasn't making any damn sense. I was in my cell just a while ago, minding my own damn business, doing some reading. Then suddenly, the guards come in, throw a sack over my head, and we're on our way. Then this bastard is the one to greet me. "Where the hell am I, man?" I asked, unsure of what was going on. "Ah, sorry, introductions," he said, waving a hand. "Name's Ronald. I'm the kind of guy in charge in here. And you're Vincent. I've read your file. Great thief. Whistleblower for some really messed up stuff the Avarice Corporation was doing. Probably still is, but that's for another time. You've got a life sentence for trying to help people, am I right?" I blinked at him. "See, I think you shouldn't be punished for trying to help. Unfortunately though, I can only pull so many strings before the government is knocking at my door, so I need to have some help. You're going to help me, Vincent." He continued. "You ever wondered if we're alone in this world?" "I've hoped," I mumbled back. "Feels like there's going to be a hidden camera reveal any second. Some dumbass comedian coming out to tell me I've been pranked. No such luck." "Well, we're not. The only thing is that it's not really this world, but another one almost exactly like it. Thousands of them actually, each one living out their own existence, unbothered by what's going on in ours," he said, motioning to someone outside the door behind him. A woman comes in holding a tray with 2 coffees, one of which she sets in front of me, the other in front of him. He nods in thanks before continuing. "Now, one of these worlds managed to make a huge breakthrough. Unfortunately, they were beset by some apocalyptic situations. Now, the breakthrough they've made is useless to them, but could end up changing everything if we could get a hold of it. Are you following me so far?" "So, what is it that they found out?" I asked. "Classified. We need your help to retrieve it though," he said, staring at me as he sipped his coffee. "If I don't know what it is, how the hell am I supposed to retrieve it?" I almost laughed here. Must have died in my sleep back in the prison. Maybe Avarice finally sent someone to make sure I stop talking about them forever. Jesus, if this is heaven, it's an absolute joke. "Oh, we'll give you all the information you need to find it, of course. We'll also be sending a team with you in order to get it. Highly trained personnel of our own, of course," he said. "Do you think we expect you to do this for free? We're willing to offer you quite a bit." "I'm listening." Might as well play along. He's going to offer me a pardon, freedom. Typical movie cliches, but he and I both know that as soon as I'm out, Avarice is putting a bullet in my head. "You get to die," he said now, making me almost spit out the sip of coffee I was going for. He laughed in response, raising a hand. "In the public eye at least, we'll have you killed, while in prison, and you get a new identity. We're also willing to cover any living expenses you may incur, and give a monthly stipend for your services for the rest of your life, so long as you let us keep an eye on you to ensure you're not oversharing with anyone." I took a moment, considering what he was saying. It wasn't like they were going to let me out anytime soon. And even if they did, it's not like Avarice was going to let me just live my life in peace after all was said and done. A deep sigh was all I could manage. "Fine. When do we leave?" 2 hours. "Do you want to eat first? We can get you anything you want," he replied, smiling and drumming on the table for a moment, before getting up. "Can you guys let him loose? There's no reason to keep him locked up. Long as the food's free, I guess." I sighed. About 30 minutes later, someone came walking in with a tray. A huge double cheeseburger with pepper jack and onion rings loaded on it, and an order of rice, accompanied by a caramel milkshake sitting on it. Considering I didn't know what's about to happen, I'm going to take what I can get. The rest of the time passed quickly, but I finished my food and started to nervously pace before they came to collect me, providing new clothes and a backpack of some basic supplies I requested. Before I knew it, I was being marched through the dim lights of this facility, finally stopping in front of what appeared to be an empty doorway. 5 others were waiting, guns slung over their shoulders and combat gear on. "Hey, shouldn't I get one of those too?" I asked the guide who had brought me here. He only nodded, handing me a pistol. I looked at it, ejecting the magazine to make sure it was full before replacing it once more. "That's it? They've got fucking assault rifles, dude. Let us handle the shooting," one of the guys said. He looked rough, a huge scar running down his forehead, through his eye and onto his left cheek. "You just make sure we can get what we need." Still barely even know what the hell we need, I grumbled. Suddenly, a loud mechanical whirring began though, and the doorway in front of us was no longer empty. There was a faint purple light coming from it, with darkness beyond. "Jump is open. Let's head in. You." Another of the soldiers was speaking, now pointing to me. He had a huge, bushy beard and sunglasses over his eyes, but I could still feel him staring me down. "Stay in the middle of us at all times." I nod, moving further towards the center of the group. Beard and Scarface moved in front of me, stepping through the doorway with a slight buzzing sound as they passed through the dim purple light. The other 3 lined up behind me, motioning me forward. Before I went through, the guide who brought me handed me an earpiece, motioning for me to put it in. Can you hear me?" I say, settling the piece into my ear. All 5 of the others grunt acknowledgement. "Now come through," I hear Beard say in my ear. Deep breaths. Moving through the doorway feels like I'm stepping through a field of static as it engulfs me. My breath catches for a moment, unsure of what I might be getting into. Then suddenly, I'm clear again. Beard and Scar are waiting there, the dark hallway engulfing them. As they each turn on a flashlight, I can see that this resembles the building we just came out of. The others follow behind me after a moment, stepping forward into the darkness and turning on their own lights. I fumble around in my bag, finally grabbing onto a small tactical beam of my own to light my way. We walked through the hallway briefly, darkness almost suffocating on every side. Beard finally raised a hand, motioning for everyone to stop where they were at the moment. We must have been near an exit, because sounds began to make their way towards us, and after a moment, the smell hit along with it. It was like the worst rot imaginable, everywhere all at once as it filled my nostrils and made my eyes water. I've gotten whiffs of some nasty shit in my lifetime, but this, God, it was like someone took a deep freezer of meat and put it out in the Florida sun for a week unplugged. It was almost painful to smell, and it was unavoidable. I searched deep in my bag, looking for anything I could rip up and stuff up my nostrils. Nothing I had asked for in prep was going to cover this though. God, what the fuck was it that could smell this bad from inside a building? Was it in here? Outside? Was that what we were supposed to be worried about while we're over here? "Damn, Sims, your mom opened her legs again?" One of the soldiers quipped at another, causing the rest to snort with laughter. Simmons, a younger guy with graying stubble, rolled his eyes in the dim light. "Your mom ever shot hers, Pierce?" Simmons shot back, making the others nearly lose it. I couldn't find the humor, considering how overpowering the smell was. Alright, Scar said, raising a hand. He put his back on the ground, pulling out a map. We were in a small city, not sure what state, but the point Scar marked was right in the middle, surrounded by small outlines of other buildings. He traced a line down the street, turning right 3 blocks down, and continuing on for about 5 blocks, before marking another building with a massive X. "We've got to make it 8 blocks total before we hit our target area. It's not likely to be a simple walk, so be ready to take care of any threats along the way. Now, I know all of you can smell that out there. That's what we need to be on our guard against." "The hell is out there?" I asked, looking each of them in the eyes in turn. "At least tell me they gave all of you more information on what we were getting into." "Fucking zombies, man," Simmons muttered. "Seriously? Zombies? Some George Romero bullshit is what's waiting out there for us?" I asked. When Ronald told me there was danger to the mission, I expected, I don't know, enemy soldiers or just booby trap buildings or something. Jesus. "The goddamn Walking Dead, brother," Pierce mumbled back. "Look, it sounds insane, but all the zombie rules apply here. Don't get bit, don't get scratched, aim for the hit, and whatever you do, don't get bit. Moment I see you take a chomp of one of these bastards, I'm putting a bullet in your head. Consider it mercy," Beard said, deadly serious as he went over the threat awaiting us. "So what do we do once we reach the target building?" Pierce asked the commander. "Mr. Mills here," Scar pointed at me now, "is going to get into the computer system for us. Place is still running on backup gens, so we'll have to force our way in through the system. Normally, I would say we just blow our way through with enough explosives, but, well, they have fail-safes on the lab area that would destroy what we're after if someone gets too close. We'll make sure you're not eaten while you get us in there. Once we're in though, we grab the target, duck out of the building, and hit here. Beard points to another X on the map, not far from the target destination. They'll have an extraction portal set up for us to jump right through. Let's make it out of this one alive and get home, understood? Sir, the others confirmed. I gave my own affirmation, slinging the pack back over my shoulder, hefting the gun in one hand and the flashlight in the other. We continued down the hallway, the sounds from outside growing louder now. Groans, moans, and the occasional scream split the air, telling me that nothing good was waiting for us out there. Beard opened the door, giving a signal for everyone to move, and we all filed out one by one, unsure of what would be waiting for us out there. The first thing I noticed was the light. It was dark out, not a star in sight, and only the occasional street light was still running to show the way. The sky above had an odd tint to it though, almost scarlet, like it was smeared with blood. Ominous clouds moved across occasionally, dark and looking like they were going to burst with crimson rain at the slightest provocation. Stay frosty, Scar mentioned as we turned, walking down the street. Buildings towered over us on each side, probably 10 floors at their tallest, and on occasion a scream of pain and terror would break out through the still night air. Somewhere in the distance, a fire was glowing, sending up smoke with a smell that would occasionally cut through the stench of rot that filled my nostrils. We moved in silence, the smell doing everything it could to choke us. Even when I wanted to open my mouth and say something, the stench forced its way in, settling on my tongue, making me gag within seconds. Before long, we had gone 1 block, with the rest of the way seeming like miles and miles before us. Hello? A voice came from an alleyway nearby as we passed. Help me, please. Don't even think about it, Beard whispered for the rest of us. We all froze, looking at the alleyway as something moved deep in the darkness. A trash can fell over, louder than thunder as it clattered to the pavement nearby. A small figure walked out, shadows obscuring their entire body as they neared us. Don't trust it. It could be someone living though, the 5th soldier mentioned. He didn't nearly look as battle-hardened as the others, and took a slight step towards the alleyway even as Beard was motioning for him to get the hell back. We have to help them, right? Step back, Scar muttered as he tried moving forward again. The shadowy figure coming towards us couldn't be older than a child, maybe 4 and 5 feet tall, thin and frail looking. As it stepped closer out of the alley, the shadows around it began to dissipate, moving towards the young soldier. I almost threw up right then and there on the street. It was definitely a kid. Or at least, it was at one time. Now though, it was something not quite dead, but not quite alive either. The skin was mottled, a sickly pale white with the same odd sheen as a dead body. That itself wouldn't have been so bad, but the real horror was the lower jaw and upper body. Its mouth was hanging wide open, but the lower jaw was split open at the chin, teeth inverting inward like pincers as the maw extended further down, opening into the thing's neck. Whatever bone it had in there now looked like jagged teeth. It stepped forward, taking the young soldier by surprise and falling on him, jagged teeth from the mouth down to his chest cavity suddenly emerging to tear into his skin. So hungry, it moaned while taking a huge chunk out of the soldier. The rest of us froze in fear as it reared back, getting ready to take another huge bite as massive pincers emerged from the split as it opened up its chest, rib bones extending out to stab into the soldier's body. Before it was able to, there was a soft pop as Beard emptied a round into the thing's forehead, leaving behind a crimson dot as it fell over, hopefully dead for real this time. Fucking hell, Scar muttered, moving towards the young soldier still writhing on the ground. His neck was torn by one of the big pincers, so he couldn't force air through his windpipe for a scream. Just labored wheezing, desperate to try and live. Scar gave him one brief look before popping around into his head, ending his misery. Sorry, kid. Screams rose up all around in response to the sounds of our skirmish, more of these things sensing a meal moving around in their turf. Within seconds, we could hear the sounds of rough footsteps, ragged breathing, and the occasional gurgling scream running towards us for their next meal. There's a grocery store we can cut through right over there. Go, go! Beard shouted, moving us all towards a supermarket on the corner, maybe a block ahead of where we needed to turn. Guess it was luck that the doors were unlocked. I stopped thinking we were lucky once we got inside. I don't know how long this place has been going to hell for, but it was long enough for everything left in this supermarket to become a health hazard. Dry goods and most of the stuff on the general shelves were okay, but the smell of rotting meat and produce was heavy in the air. Even worse, we couldn't go more than a few feet without an insane amount of flies buzzing all around, making it hard to breathe in the already thick stench of the rot. I zipped my jacket up all the way, sticking the collar over my face. The air was hot and heavier this way, but it was better than taking a ton of flies directly into my lungs as we walked. We need to go through the back. There should be a loading dock that will let us out onto the next street, Pierce said, scanning the store with his flashlight. Empty registers still had items on them, abandoned midway through checkout. Only the occasional light was on, casting a dim glow over every fifth aisle or so as they flickered. I don't know what happened here, but the scene that was left only told us that it was gruesome. Puddles of blood lined the small aisle in front of the registers, smeared as whatever had left them behind must have gotten up to leave after being turned. Our footsteps echoed as we walked, the occasional squeak on the floor nearly making me jump out of my damn skin. After everything that I had just seen, I was ready to make my way back to the damn door we came through and spend the rest of my days in a cell. Fuck this. Shh. Beard raised a hand, motioning for all of us to stop right then and there. I could hear something moving now despite our stillness. Something else over the steady buzz of flies in the air. We moved our flashlights around, the bugs only making intense shadows across every aisle and wall inside as we tried to tell if we were alone. There was something scraping along, sliding on the ground with the occasional squeak as it went over puddles of blood on the floor. The fuck is that? Simmons whispered as we all shone our flashlights around, trying to tell what the hell was coming towards us. In moments, I had the answer. Coming from an aisle only a few feet to my right, something was crawling along the ground. Pale alabaster skin shining in the flashlight beam, red smeared on it from passing through puddles of blood. It wasn't just one of the things, but many fused together. It was like they got pushed in too close together and instead of just crushing each other, started to melt on a cellular level, dead flesh absorbing more and more of their peers. 3 heads looked at me, lifeless, gray eyes staring straight through my soul in the flashlight beam. Each one suddenly opened their mouth, split lower jaw, a white maw with sharp teeth clamoring out as if they were each alive looking for something new to devour, and let out a horrible scream. I don't know if their windpipes were fused together as well, but it was so discordant that it sounded like someone blowing on a bagpipe without any sense of knowing how to play. It chilled me down to my core as it started crawling faster. Masses of legs and arms fused at joints where they shouldn't be, rushing towards us in a mad frenzy. "Run!" Beard shouted, taking off towards the back of the store as we all rushed to follow. The mass of bodies let out another discordant scream as it gave chase, desperate to catch fresh prey. As we passed the meat coolers, full of flies, maggots, and rotten cuts of beef or pork, or whatever they had been, this thing burst through the aisles behind, gaining on us like a bat out of hell. I don't know how it was so fast when it looked like a mangled mass of limbs, but it was getting closer. Too close. "In here!" Pierce shouted, motioning to one of the swinging doors to the stockroom. We rushed through, Pierce holding the door open until everyone got in, and he let it swing back closed. It hit the abomination, causing it to let out a grunt of pain from every mouth. Before Pierce could follow behind us though, it pushed through, rearing back for only a moment as the door opened before shooting out a long spiked tongue that wrapped around his foot. "Pierce!" Simmons shouted, starting to go back for him before Scar grabbed his shoulder, turning him back. There was an emergency exit door ahead, our salvation to get out of this hellish place. We had to move though. Before any of us could do anything, Pierce looked back, nearly emptying his clip into the creature that still had a grasp on him. More long tongues shot out from the other mouths on it, wrapping around his body as their spikes stuck into his flesh. Before it was able to reel him in, he grabbed the pistol on his hip, putting the barrel to his head and pulling the trigger. His body went limp as the thing staggered forward, throwing itself on top of him and starting to devour his remains. "Come on, out here!" Beard shouted, opening the emergency door for the rest of us. As soon as we were through, he shot it back, grabbing a nearby dumpster and pulling it over the doorway, keeping that thing inside where it couldn't come after us. "Thought you said it was just fucking zombies." I shouted at him, falling back against the store wall. We were in a back alley, wider than the others, right next to a small loading dock where trucks could pull in. "That's not a fucking zombie, man." "I don't know what the hell that was. I'm going off the briefing they gave me," he responded, almost out of breath. "Doesn't matter though. We're here now. We can give Ronald an ass kicking when we get back, but we have to make it back first." The three of us left could only grumble in agreement. Scar and Simmons looked pissed, and I can't say I blame them. When it comes down to it though, we only have one way out of here. "Fine, let's keep moving," Scar mumbled. We kept going, moving as quickly as possible through the alley and onto the street now, traversing the last few blocks toward the building that was our target. With any luck, we could get in and get out. When we finally made it, I could see that our target wasn't an ordinary building. 10 stories at least, with a big sign outside that said, Everise Corporation. Motherfucker. Nobody told me these bastards would be here too. I mumbled, looking at the huge, heavy glass doors with no telling what was beyond. "They've got their hands in everything, no matter what universe you're in," Beard mentioned, moving up to the doors and testing them. To our surprise, they gave almost immediately. No locks, no blockade, nothing. "Seems a little convenient," I mumbled. "So where do we need to go in here?" "Sub-level 3, Scar mentioned, moving in first, gun raised at the ready for anything that may be waiting. "You gonna be able to get us in?" I nodded. "Depending on what's guarding it, shouldn't be an issue." "Good, let's move," Beard said. Simmons led me into the building before following up the rear, keeping his gun up for anything that may come our way. At the other side of the lobby was a wall of elevators, though if they were running was a different question. A light flickered somewhere off to the right, leading down another hallway with a sign marking stairs somewhere along the way. We pushed the button on the elevators, but no light came. After waiting a moment, we realized we were going to have to take the long way. "God damn, I hate stairs," Simmons grunted as we went along. The stairwell was curved and narrow, ensuring we had to go one at a time, single file, to descend. It was going to be cramped, and if anything attacked in here, we were more likely to hit each other with friendly fire than we were to hit whatever might be attacking. "Run, don't fight," Beard nodded as we went down. Footsteps echoed loud on the smooth concrete as we descended, blinking red lights the only thing to illuminate our way. Somewhere far off, I could hear a scream from one of the creatures. Whether it was one singular, like we found first upon arrival, or one of the amalgamations though, I don't know. I hope it's the former. After a few minutes of walking, we finally made it to a door marked S3, our destination. When we entered, we could sense that there was something amiss. Glass was broken on the floor, with a red emergency light blinking in time with a blaring alarm somewhere deeper in. The main door was ripped from the hinges. A keypad next to it rendered useless. "Guess I won't need to get us in," I muttered, somewhat relieved. I could hack systems back home, but God knows if they were going to be the same in this universe? Reality? Now that I think of it, I was sent in here with no guarantee that any of my knowledge would transfer over. Kind of shit planning on their part. We hit through the door, lights shining off all white walls, interrupted by the occasional glare of red from emergency lights on the ceiling. I started to grow uneasy when we passed by the unhinged door lying on the ground. There's no way something human could have done that. Even a damn truck wouldn't be able to tear that thing off and get it this far away from where it was supposed to be. Whatever it was, I'm hoping we don't end up running into it. Hallways twisted and turned as we followed them, trying to find the right door. Occasional windows into labs showed scenes of disarray, with test tubes and tables flipped and scattered all over the place. Every so often, there was a spray of blood dried on the wall, or a congealed puddle on the floor, but nothing in sight that could have caused it. "In here," Scar grunted, leading us into a small non-windowed room a little ways past the last lab. We went through what was once an airlock, moving into a small storage room full of freezers. As Beard rummaged through, looking through the various freezers for whatever we were after, I swear I heard a scream come from somewhere else in the building. Scar must have heard it too, because he moved back towards the door, motioning for Simmons to follow as they raised their guns, looking back at Beard. "Be quick, alright? Way ahead of you," he grunted back, pulling a vial from the back of one of the freezers. He set it down on the table, grabbing something out of his pack, a small case to put it in. As the vial snapped into the container, a loud roar echoed through the empty halls of the facility. "Ah, hell. What the fuck was that?" Simmons whispered. The roar came again. This one didn't sound like the others, the screams of the creature back in the supermarket. This sounded like a beast, a creature made to prey, announcing that we were finally in its hunting grounds. Whatever it is, this is probably where it was made, I muttered, moving past the others towards the door. Not sure about you fellas, but it's not something I want to run into, especially if it's worse than what we've already seen. Amen to that, brother, Beard said, putting the vial container back into his bag before following me out the door, hefting his own gun at his shoulder now. Let's get the hell home, boys. We all started down the hallway, making our way back towards the stairs. The trip out of the facility was quiet. I honestly thought we were going to make it out without an issue, go down to the extraction point and be home free. I've gotta stop assuming these kind of things. Scar was on point leading us up the stairs when the thing attacked. I don't even know how far away it was or, well, what the hell it was. All I know is that Scar was there 1 second, light shining forward and gun at the ready. The next moment, he's being hoisted up over us with huge tendrils of red piercing through him, lifting him up forcefully as they tore through his body. "Get out of here!" Scar shouted at us as we gawked at him. I felt Beard shove me from behind, moving me closer to the door. Whatever was holding onto Scar, it was further up on the stairs above. He desperately tried lifting his gun to fire at it, but before he could get a shot off, the tendrils looped back around, stabbing through his torso again before tearing him clean in half at the midsection. It tossed him down the middle of the stairwell as we ran past, the life draining from his eyes as he fell. We ran out of the stairwell and slammed the door shut behind, dropping over whatever we could find in front of it to block this thing from coming after us. Rushing to the front doors, we threw them open and walked out into the street, only to find that the sky above had opened up, pouring down rain that was now flooding the streets. That's not helpful at all, Simmons said, looking both ways up and down the street. Our extraction point was a few buildings down to our left, right across the road. It doesn't look like we were going to be able to get there while staying dry though. Lightning suddenly flashed, illuminating the dark city around through the rain, with a loud boom of thunder following only seconds after. Might work to our advantage, I said, noticing the smell of rot was much less intense now that the rain was covering it. With any luck, this could cover our movement. Maybe those things didn't like being out in the rain. Wishful thinking anyway. I pulled the pistol from my waistband, preparing for what may be ahead of us. Alright, it's a yellow building we're looking for. It's an electronics store. Our extraction point is the door leading into their inventory room. They're going to open the portal there, Beard said, staring Simmons and I both down. Head straight in. Hopefully portal is already open, but if not, we use that as base camp until it does. Whatever we do, we make it back home, damn it. We nodded in return, though I could tell that Simmons was on the same hopeless wavelength I was. Either way, we had to do what we could. Rain pounding the pavement around us, we headed out to the street, ready to make the run to safety. Talk about bad timing with this storm. The wind was howling, more lightning and thunder coming along with it. I was drenched to the bone within seconds after we stepped out, barely making it through the doorway before wind blew heavy rain right inside at us. Water flowed into the sewer grates all around us, already starting to flood the pipes below. Thunder struck at the same time as the window above us broke, glass shattering everywhere and falling around us mingled with the rain. We kept running, barely taking a second to look back as something dropped to the street behind us, letting out a massive, angry roar. I was fortunate enough to look back right as lightning flashed. This thing was huge, at least 10 feet tall, and perched on all fours on the street as rain fell all around it. The thing was, well, I think it was human at one time. The features on the face appeared human-like, with clear eyes, a nose, and I can't necessarily say mouth because there were no lips of any kind. It looked like the skin just split, showing off hundreds of needle-like teeth lined and smiling. It was long and lithe, pale flesh shining as the rain dripped from it, totally bald with no clothes on either. It was on all fours, long lithe fingers holding it up while what appeared to be a tail and a huge stinger at the end curled up at the ready above it. I couldn't tell very well in the brief light that I had, but its eyes appeared a clear blue, and I could swear it was sniffing us out as the rain fell around us. I turned away, just willing my feet to pump harder against the pavement as I ran, desperate to get the hell away from whatever this damn thing was. Unfortunately, it seemed most of our luck had begun to run out. The thing behind us let out another roar, and from nearly every building all around, the undead began to pour out, not a care given to where they were jumping to, falling from windows and running out of doors with loud crashes that made the thunder seem like a murmur. "Oh hell," I mumbled, desperately breathing to keep the oxygen flowing in my veins. Sitting in a cell for years now had me out of shape at this point, opting to rather read and sleep than work out in the prison yard. I was never much for exercise in the first place anyway. Now I was regretting that though, my lungs screaming as we ran. I could hear this thing behind us and looked back against my better judgment. I thought the hordes of zombies falling to the street around us would keep it from getting too close too quickly, but it had the same idea. Instead of walking on the street, it was jumping over the tops of cars and onto the sides of buildings, sticking to them like a spider as it came closer to us. I was doing all I could to just dodge any of the undead now baring their teeth at us, barely able to keep up with what was happening as is. Before I knew what was happening, Simmons had shoved me out of the way as the big creature came down, the stinger tearing through his abdomen, where I had been only moments before. "Shit!" he shouted as blood gushed from his mouth. He held a hand over the wound, using his other to spray the creature with bullets. It pulled the stinger back, leaving a gaping hole in Simmons' midsection, before suddenly sprouting dozens of tendrils from its back. Simmons looked at me, mouthing for me to run as the tendrils stabbed into him, draining him of his life force. The creature gave another shriek, seemingly pleased with what it had done. I ran, putting my head down and staring at Beard's feet as we went, desperate to make it out of this fucking nightmare. Bodies splattered all around us as we continued to run, almost to our destination. As the rain picked up once more, I looked to the nearby buildings, trying to see if we had made it. A yellow building, huge sign reading Circuit Town on the side, was right there. Glass doors with a sign that said, "Come in, we're open," hanging down inviting us in. We desperately threw ourselves against it, forcing the door open the wrong way and breaking through the glass. We didn't have time to feel safe yet, as zombies began to stand and give chase, running after us through the broken door. Beard and I both popped shots off at them, desperate to get some distance before they were able to get their own bites in at us. Finally, Beard and I both scrambled to our feet, desperate to find some way to block them coming in. At this point, they were forcing past each other to get through, squeezing each other through the small space to get in here after us. We each grabbed the end of a shelf unit nearby, dragging it over to block off what we could and keep a barrier between us and the outside. It only lasted a moment before the zombies were the least of our problems again though, with the massive creature pushing through to come after us once more. Beard shrugged his pack off, tossing it over to me. I could only look at him as he hefted his gun towards the shelf that was keeping us safe. "The hell you doing, man?" I asked, stepping back, looking around desperately for the door. "You're going through first, kid. Just in case I don't make it, you can get the objective back home," he said, steeling himself and putting a finger on the trigger. He popped off 2 shots, dropping 2 of the zombies that were climbing over the barrier with well-placed shots to the forehead. "Now move!" I nodded, turning to look around. I headed towards the back of the store, past aisles of DVD players, televisions, radios and printers, searching for anything that could lead us back home. I finally saw it, a door set into the back wall. Just in time as I heard the shelves guarding the front door suddenly go flying into the side wall, pushed aside by the creature as it started ducking through the broken doorway. "It's here! I see it!" I shouted to Beard. He popped off more shots, hitting the creature right in the forehead but doing nothing to it. It absorbed the bullets like they were nothing. Not a good sign. As I neared the door, I sensed something wasn't right. It looked plain, and as I pushed on it, swinging the metal in on double-sided hinges, nothing happened. I didn't feel the electric charge, didn't emerge in my own dimension. Nothing. We were still here, in the electronics store surrounded by the undead and whatever this damn thing was. I turned, shouting again. "No good, portal isn't open." "Bastards." I heard Beard mutter under his breath before popping more shots off. He was doing everything to try and keep this thing at bay, realizing hit shots wouldn't work. He tried to take it out at the kneecaps, to no avail. It just kept inching towards us on all fours, like a giant cat stalking prey as it walked ever closer. The stinger over its back began to curl, brushing the rough tile on the ceiling as it popped, getting ready to make the stab at whichever of us looked easier. "Any backup ideas?" I asked. "Just hold out till they open that damn door." Beard grunted back. He fired again, center mass this time, but to no avail still. He pulled something off his belt, and it took me until he raised it to his mouth, biting off a pin to realize it was a grenade. He tossed it at the thing, pushing me backwards and slinging the door closed behind him. I barely had time to think before the boom rocked both of us, sending the door flying inward and knocking us both backwards. The thing roared, angry at the pain it must have caused. Despite the explosion though, I could still hear it coming closer as even more zombies poured in through the door behind it. "Come on, open the damn door," he shouted, punching the air and struggling back to his feet. My ears were ringing from the blast, but I struggled to mine as well. I felt woozy, uneasy as the smell of rot began to pervade this place again. When the hell are they going to open up that door? We got what we came for, but we can't get it back home if they don't bring us back. Son of a bitch, I really don't want to die here. Suddenly, a purple light began to pulse from behind us, the other side of the small inventory room. Did we have the wrong door? Did they have to make a last-minute change? Either way, Beard and I shared a look, understanding that our extraction point had changed by at least a few feet. But there was our way out finally. We both started to run as the creature burst through the door behind us. I dove through first, landing almost face first on the ground on the other side. The pack landed beside me, clanking as the vial container inside rustled around. The smell of rot was finally gone though. Instead, the building was filled with the smell of dust and maybe some mold, though I was honestly thankful for it. "We fucking made it," I laughed, pushing myself up off the ground and looking behind me. Beard was standing in front of the door, still looking back with his gun raised at it. "Shut it, now!" he shouted to the men around us. One moved over to a small console that was set up nearby, inputting commands that transmitted to small bars placed around the door. The deep purple electricity in the opening started to shut down. Beard began to lower his gun, a sigh escaping as we were nearly home free. The stinger of the creature darted right through the closing portal, stabbing right into Beard's chest as the portal fully shut down, severing it. Instead of dropping to the ground though, it hung limp from the soldier, one side severed and hanging while the other dangled out of his back. He gave a slight laugh at the ridiculousness of the situation. Son of a bitch. He collapsed, blood beginning to pool on the floor around him as his eyes closed. I started to get up, but could only fall back, looking at the dead body now in front of me. It must have hit a vital organ, because he wasn't even breathing anymore. The last hint of life, just a long drawn-out rasp as the last air escaped his lungs. "Jesus Christ," I said, only staring at the body. I realized a moment later that I was still holding my pistol, as I began to stand up, getting ready to holster it and get the hell out of here. His body began to twitch again. Before I knew what was happening, he ceased, body arching up, almost breaking his back as he gasped in as much air as he could. It was raspy and coming out in short bursts. His face contorted in pain, a scream ripping from his lungs now as his lower jaw began to force itself apart at the midpoint of his chin. It split, leaving long sinew and teeth with no place to go as it continued down his neck, opening his entire upper body wide as it descended. The bones of his ribcage began to crack and distort, piercing through his skin as they turned to long, hooked teeth, ready to devour any of us if he could only reach. I don't know if it was exhaustion or respect for the man who got me through this nightmare ordeal, but I decided that it needed to be fast. Raising the pistol, I popped 2 shots in his head to be sure. Within moments, his body ceased seizing, falling back limp on the ground as the pool of blood began to grow, seeping further out on the smooth concrete floor. The agents with us didn't say anything, only offering to take my gun as one guided me through the doors back towards a waiting car that would take me back to their headquarters. Once I get there, they'll probably debrief me, ask me what happened to the rest of the team's end. I'll tell them about it all. Not much sense in keeping a secret about any of this anyway. Whatever is in this bag, whatever they sent us in there after, I hope it was worth it. I'm going to get my freedom now, but I don't think I'm ever going to be free of what happened over there. Whatever Avarice is doing here. Well, I'm glad it didn't turn into that. I must have barely scratched the surface when I blew the whistle. Guess it's time to start thinking about where I want to disappear to. Definitely not a big city. Not after all of that. Maybe the countryside. Maybe the mountains. Yeah, the mountains. Sound nice.